Watching these playoffs made me realize something. Julius Randle and Jalen Duren might actually be Eastern and Western Conference parallels. At first, that sounds weird because they don't even play the same position. Randle is a ball dominant scoring forward, while Duren is more of an athletic rim running center. But when you really watch them in playoff basketball, the similarities start showing up fast. Both are physically imposing players who rely heavily on strength and athleticism to impact the game. During the regular season, that works really well. They can overwhelm teams physically, get easy points, rebound, impose themselves, and look dominant. But in the playoffs, it's a whole different story. Physical dominance alone usually isn't enough. And I think both the Timberwolves and Pistons learned that the hard way. Because when the playoffs start, the game changes completely. The floor shrinks, teams scout every tendency, weaknesses get hunted possession after possession, and suddenly, the things that worked in January stop working in May. And honestly, I think both Randall and Duran ran into that reality. Starting with Randall, I honestly think he's clearly the more skilled player between the two. He can create his own shot, handle the ball, attack downhill, pass at times, and when he gets hot, he can genuinely look unstoppable offensively. There are games when Randall looks like one of the hardest covers in basketball because of the combination of strength, footwork, and shot making ability. But the problem with Randall has never really been his talent. It's feel, it's processing speed, it's decision making under pressure. A lot of the time in the playoffs, it feels like Randall slows down the offense too much. He'll hold the ball, over dribble, force difficult shots into traffic, miss open teammates, or try to bully through double teams instead of quickly making the right read. And the thing is, when you're physically dominant, those habits can still work in the regular season because most defenses aren't fully locked in every night. But playoff different defense is different. They want you to play predictable basketball. They want you to isolate too much. They want you to force contested shots. And I feel like throughout the Minnesota Spurs series, Randall kept falling into these traps. Now, to be fair to him, I don't think Randall is a bad passer at all. He's actually improved a lot as a playmaker over the years. But there's a difference between being capable of making passes and consistently playing selfless playoff basketball. And after Minnesota lost, hearing Timberwolves players talk about how the team lacks selflessness immediately made me think about Randall. Because playoff basketball punishes selfish tendencies harder than any other environment in sports, especially when your number one option is someone like Anthony Edwards. Ant plays with force too, but there's a difference. Even when Ant attacks aggressively, it still feels like he's reading the defense and reacting to what's there. With Randall, sometimes it feels like he decides what he's doing before the play even develops. And against elite playoff defenses, that becomes a problem. Now, moving on to Jalen Duren. The similarities become really interesting. Unlike Randall, Duran isn't nearly as polished offensively yet. He's not creating difficult shots or isolating defenders constantly. But physically, he might actually be even more imposing. He's stronger, more explosive vertically, faster in transition, and honestly one of the better young athletes at the center position in the league. And during parts of the regular season, especially when Cade Cunningham missed time, we saw flashes that made people really excited about Duran's future. There were moments where he was grabbing the ball and attacking a transition often, trying to create off the dribble occasionally, making reads, showing confidence offensively. That's why I actually still believe in Durant a little bit long term. because the flashes are there. And then the playoffs came. And mentally, he looked overwhelmed at times. Not just offensively either, defensively too. There were many possessions where his awareness looked late. Rotations were slow, he wasn't constantly imposing himself physically, and for someone with his athleticism, there were stretches where he almost faded into the background of the game. And that's the part that surprised me the most. Because players with Duran's physical tools are supposed to affect playoff games even without scoring a ton. Rebounding, rim protection, energy, defensive presence, physicality. But instead, there were just too many moments where it felt like Cade was carrying the mental toll of the team by himself. And that's really where the biggest parallel between Duren and Randle comes in. Both players are supposed to be secondary stars next to highly intelligent young guards. For Minnesota, it's Ant. For Detroit, it's Cade. And both Ant and Cade process the game at a really high level. They manipulate defenses, control pace, make advanced reads, and understand how to create advantages for teammates. And that's why both of them already feel like playoff caliber league creators. But eventually, your number one option needs help. And not just scoring help either, mental help, decision making help, composure, consistency. And I think both teams learned that just having talented physical players next to your star guard isn't automatically enough, especially in playoff basketball. Because one thing the playoffs expose very quickly is the difference between athletes and processors. I mean, basketball processing speed. The best playoff players react instantly. Guys like Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, or even someone like Draymond Green. They may not always be the best pure athletes on the court, but mentally they're constantly ahead of the defense. They read help defenders early. They make quick decisions. They adapt possession to possession. And I think both Randall and Duran still struggle with that in different ways. For Randall, it becomes tunnel vision and forcing offense. For Duran, it becomes disappearing mentally or reacting late to the game around him. Now, obviously, Duran deserves more patience because he's younger. Centers, especially, usually take longer to develop mentally, defensively. And honestly, I still think Duran can become a really impactful player if the game slows down for him mentally over time. But right now, the parallels are hard to ignore. Both players are extremely talented physically. Both put up impressive regular season production. Both are expected to be second options next to rising superstar guards. And both ended up playing a role in why their teams couldn't get past the semifinals. Which honestly says a lot about modern playoff basketball. Because every year, the playoffs remind people that talent alone doesn't win championships. Athleticism alone doesn't win championships. Physicality alone doesn't win championships. Eventually, it becomes about feel, adaptability, selflessness, and making quick winning decisions under pressure. And until those things improve, both Julius Randle and Jalen Duren are probably going to continue being viewed as frustrating playoff players despite all the talent they have.